Thank you, Bill. Good evening, Governor and Mrs. Beshear and Governor and Mrs. Patton, distinguished guests. Thank you for having us all here on this wonderful event. It's great to be here. I, too, want to recognize my House Democratic members who are here and remind Jeff Hoover that 58 is still a majority, even on Doty Creek, where I was raised. Stand up, House members, and let's welcome you all. You know, I was practicing this speech, getting ready to look at it this afternoon, and Brian Wilkerson, who's here in my office, told me that the topic was expectations for the 2011 session, and I opened the little folder up, and the pages were blank. But you know, as I was leaving Frankfurt today, I noticed something. Governor, I don't know if y'all saw it. There must have been 5,000, and that is no exaggeration, buzzards in the sky over there. And as I was walking out the door to get into the car, a lady stopped me. She said, "Do you see all those buzzards?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "Do you know what they're doing here? What's dead?" I said, "Ma'am, the Senate agenda has arrived in the House." Now, there's a lot of my distinguished colleagues here tonight, and I want to talk about a few of them, and I hope they don't get offended because it's all in good humor. You know, Jeff Hoover's a great legislator. He's a great friend of mine. I had the privilege of serving with his mother. I brag about Jeff a lot because he truly is a wonderful legislator. He told me the other day, he said, "Quit bragging on me so much." He said, "It's hurting me with the Tea Party." I said, "Jeff, I'm a coffee man myself." You know, and R.J. Palmer, what a wonderful guy, mild-mannered, great public servant, good disposition, middle-of-the-road guy. R.J., let me remind you what my cousin Grady Stumbo said one time about the middle of the road. He said, "The only thing you find there are yellow stripes and dead polecats." You want to ever be called majority leader, you better take a side on something over there. I'm going to tell you that for a fact. And Senate Democrats, you know, I hate to talk about my colleagues this way, but I did have somebody tell me the other day, said they must be cross-dressers. Said they look like Superman when they're out in the state, but they look like Clark Kent when they're up there on the floor of the Senate. And Senate Republicans. David, I can understand why y'all need that 48-hour rule over there. There's a lot of real slow readers in that chamber. You know, my good friend David's running for governor, as everybody knows, and he's going to find out, I'm sure, that there are areas in this state, as I found out, Jack, when I ran for Attorney General, that people just don't necessarily like you. As a matter of fact, I heard a story the other day about him. It said he was driving through one of those fine Democratic counties in eastern Kentucky, and he did see a little boy walking along the side of the road, kind of ragged and downtrodden. Governor, he had a pair of bib overalls on, one gallus hanging down. So he told his driver, said, "Stop the car. I want to talk to that young boy. Looks like he needs some cheering up." He jumped out of the car, stuck out his hand, and said, "Son, do you know who the president of the Kentucky State Senate is?" With a big smile, and said the little boy looked up at him, said, "My pa says we ain't got nary." And I was talking to some of the reporters the other day that had been covering the campaign trail with him, and I said, "You know, what kind of questions are they asking? Is there one repetitive question that they ask? Because if you ever run for statewide office, you find out that, you know, you can tell kind of what the voters are thinking if they keep asking the same question at the same towns." And the guy told me, he said, "Yeah, there's one question that they keep asking him." I said, "Well, what is it?" He said, "Well, he gets on all them talk shows on the radio, so they call in," said, "Everybody calls in, wants to know if Richie's going to be there tonight." Governor Beshear, Miss Jane, we're walking down the wonderful, beautiful streets of Dawson Springs, his hometown, the other day. And like a lot of small towns in Kentucky, if you haven't been there, the railroad tracks runs right through the middle of it. Reportedly, a train came by, and there was a hobo in the back of one of the cars. The hobo caught the First Lady's eye and waved at her, and she reportedly waved back with a big smile to the hobo. Governor, being observant like he is, noticed that and said, "Do you know him?" She said, "Yeah, I know him. I went to high school with him. As a matter of fact, we used to date a little bit when I was in high school with him." governor kind of puffed his chest out a little bit, you know. He said, well, you know, you haven't done so bad for yourself, have you? He said, I've been a successful lawyer in this state. I've been state representative. I've been attorney general. I've been lieutenant governor. Now I'm governor of this state. You've done pretty good, ain't you? She looked at him. She said, no, Steve, if I'd have married him, he'd been governor too. And I understand that Rand Paul, and we want to wish him the best of luck in his Senate seat. It was sworn in today. I saw that in the newspaper. You know, after thinking about some of the things that he said during the campaign on issues, I believe I finally got some answers. He said Kentucky's agriculture community did not need any agriculture subsidies. Well, as much horse manure as he spread across the Commonwealth, I can understand that, Governor, because they don't have to buy fertilizer for the next 5 years. You know, and speaking of fertilizer, I'll share a story with you. You know, traveling across the state's a great experience. Sometimes you get lost. When I got lost one time up in Jackson County, beautiful county, Republican county, and I stopped at a little country store there to ask if I could find my way, and the lady asked me, she said, who are you? And I told her my name, and she said, what are you doing here? And I said, I'm running for Attorney General. She said, you Republican? I said, no, ma'am, I'm a Democrat. A Democrat? She said, we've never seen a Democratic candidate in this state before. She said, would you mind if I got some of my neighbors together, and would you give us your campaign speech? Because in our county, we have never seen a Democratic statewide candidate before. And I said, yes, ma'am, I'll do it. So we walked out behind the store, Governor, and they got a bunch of the neighbors there. There's a pile of horse manure there, and they took a pallet and set it up on top of it. And I climbed up there and commenced to give them my speech. And I started with these words. I said, I've given a lot of speeches in a lot of different places before. But this is the first time I've ever given a Democratic speech from a Republican platform. You know, I hear a lot of talk about, well, we want to be like Tennessee these days. We'll be like Tennessee. Well, the only three things I ever saw good come out of Tennessee is I-24, I-65, and I-75 North. My wife couldn't be here tonight. Our daughter has a little piano play recital that she went to, but she is, for those of you who know Mary Karen, you know I'm telling the truth about this. She is really, truly one of the most kind and decent people I've ever known in my life. She's a lot better person than I am. That don't take much, but she has one little kind of character flaw that I'll tell you about. She hates the University of Tennessee. Hates them. We were playing UT in the football game one year, and UT cheerleaders come out. She said, you know what you get when you cross a University of Tennessee cheerleader with a pig? I said, no. She said, nothing. There's some things a pig won't do. Told me this story the other day. Said, fellow walked into this store, looked at the proprietor, and he said, I want an RC and a moon pie. Guy looked at him and said, you from Tennessee, ain't you? Customer looked at him and said, why would you say that, man? He said, if I walked in here and I wanted Philadelphia sandwich, steak sandwich, would you think I was Philadelphia? The guy said, well, I don't know about that. He said, if I walked in here and I wanted a piece of New York cream pie, would you think I was from New York? Guy said, well, I don't know. I never thought about that. Guy said, why do you think that I'm from Tennessee just because I walked in here and I wanted an RC Cola and a moon pie? Proprietor looked at him and said, buddy, this is a hardware store. You know, Mary Karen's Catholic, and when we met, the only two Catholic words I knew were bingo and rhythm, but we've been working on that. And when I think about our relationship, I'm a Baptist. I'm a Southern Baptist. I'm proud of it. But I recall a great story that Huey Long told. The northern part of Louisiana is Baptist and Protestant. The southern part is very Catholic. The story is that when Huey Long was running, he was given these speeches. And he would say that, you know, he remembered as a boy when he would go on Sunday morning to hook up the mule and take and get his Catholic grandparents and drive down to early Mass at the Catholic Church. And then he'd go back about 11 o'clock and pick up his Baptist grandparents, and they'd go down to the Baptist church for services, and that his soul was better for both of those experiences. One of his campaign workers between the stops looked at him kind of questionable and said, Governor, I didn't know you had Catholic grandparents and Baptist grandparents. Huey looked at him and said, son, I never even had the damn mule. But you know, a couple of the other speakers have alluded to it. The leaky bucket, we think, is now the leaky thimble. And there is good news. I saw this morning on the news reports that there were nearly 300,000 new jobs created across this country in the month of December. 300,000 new jobs, the best month, I believe, in 24 consecutive months. Our retailers and manufacturers are expecting the increase of 25%, they say, over the next 3 months across our nation. We are seeing the signs of recovery. Hope and help is on the horizon. At the state level, and I'm sure Governor Beshear will talk about this, we're seeing the revenue starting to tick up just a little bit. The recession is not over, but we are starting to recover, and thank God for that. And I don't believe that you're going to see an unproductive session this time in the General Assembly. There's a lot of good ideas out there, and I don't mean to cast any dispersions upon any of them with my comments here tonight. In the House, we support Governor Beshear in his efforts to shore up the Medicaid plan as he has for the past 2 years, and to make some budget adjustments which will be budget neutral in these hard times. And I want to thank Governor Beshear for guiding us through this recession with a steady hand. And he's done so in light of floods and windstorms and rainstorms and every other thing that you can think of. And I want to tell you, Governor, I think you've done a pretty good job. On our side, you're going to see things talked about like, thank you, Governor, thank you. You're going to see Representative Jeff Greer talk about his dropout proposal that our First Lady so adamantly supports and we think would help in the future of Kentucky's total population. You're going to see Representative Dameron talk about immigration. He passed a bill the last 2 sessions which put the burden upon the employer to make sure that illegal immigrants don't work in jobs where state contracts are involved. And if you want to stop illegal immigration, then put the burden on the employer, because if the jobs aren't here, and you know it, and I know it, the illegal immigrants won't be here. Representative Linda Belcher has a proposal to help solve some of our problems with methamphetamine. She proposes to take the pseudoephedrine products and place them in a category where you have to get a prescription to do it. When I was Attorney General, Jack, the FBI said that 97% of Kentucky's methamphetamine came from the Mexican drug cartels. They have since cracked down in Mexico, and now we're seeing the return of these small, dangerous labs all across Kentucky by these 1 and 2 people operations. They are not drug pushers as we think of them. They are addicts, but they're dangerous, and many times they involve young children who can't do anything but sit there and watch. On prisons, we have the Pew report coming out, and you know, when I was Attorney General talk about prisons, and Jack will appreciate this, we have to put people in jail, and not a fun thing to do, but most of them get mad at you, and Governor Beshear will remember this. Some of them don't. Now, I got a Christmas card this year, which made me think about this. I get it every year from the same guy I put in jail. Sends me a Christmas card. Now, think about that. On the inside, Luther, when I open it up, it's got a little handwritten note that said, "Wish you were here." We're also going to be talking about a False Claim Act, both the Senate version and the House version, which will be filed, and I'm sure that we can come to some accord on that. Representative Watkins and Representative Susan Western today proposed a statewide smoking ban. And I think personally, and I congratulate you on your stance on that, but I think we ought to also talk about in this session, I intend to file a bill to this effect that would prohibit adults and people from smoking in cars where children under the age of 16 are riding. Let me tell you, if you're trapped in a car seat, you've got nowhere to go and you can't get out of that car. And if we're going to talk about protecting people and allowing them to breathe clean air, we ought to think about our infants first. Only one other state in the nation has done that, and that's Oregon. I'm sure we're going to hear a lot of debate about that, and I'm sure there's going to be quite a bit of controversy that may be stirred up by that. But that's okay. We need to talk about it. Tax modernization, I applaud Senator Williams for taking some steps toward tax modernization. I'm not going to talk bad about anybody who tries to move that issue forward. I personally agree with Governor Beshear that now, just as we're seeing the signs of this recovery, would be a bad time to perhaps talk about that issue seriously, because tax modernization means that some people pay less and some people pay more. And it is a delicate balance and obviously a tough issue. You know, the truth is, in Kentucky, we're blessed to have men like Steve Beshear and David Williams and a lot of these ladies and gentlemen who sit here tonight. They give of their time, they give of their effort, they give up their times with their families, they give up business opportunities. They are truly dedicated public servants. I've known them both for a number of years, and I applaud both of you. And I really say that not as an elected official, but as a Kentuckian. I am proud to say that I live in a state where two men who do have different ideas that they'll debate over these next several months, and they'll talk about them in every corner of this state, and that's the way it ought to be. But they should not be thought less of because you might disagree with the way that they think about a particular issue. You know, we founded this country on free debate, and we forget all too often how important it is that we bring people together of different views. Tommy, different temperaments, talents, and convictions. Jefferson believed, and I believe, that the best public policy is made when people with different ideas, different backgrounds, different visions, different dreams come together in free and open debate and engage in an exchange of ideas that can be harmonious, that can be disagreeable, but not be disrespectful. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening. God bless you.